There is so much noise in this house tonight. Well, you can hear it. Like there's just so many conversations going on. But anyway, I wanted to do this video. This channel is a weird channel. I pontificate all the time. We all know this. But also, as I go through my studies of music and popular music, I'm really literally only studying popular music because I'm old and I don't know how many years I have left. I'm not going to start playing Chopin, you know, at this point in time in my life, or Van Halen, which they cross that boundary into pop music, of course. But anyway, um, every once in a while, I have these little realizations as I'm playing. So, where I am right now with guitar, electric guitar, an acoustic guitar in a way, is that while I am not doing finger picking, I am playing chords and I can do some small lead stuff. But one thing that has happened recently, and I'm sure that people that have been playing guitar for quite a while can reminisce and think about when this happened to them when they were young. And maybe you're like me and you're hitting this point yourself, is that I can read lyrics with chord names written like F, C sharp minor, and immediately hit those right as I'm reading through it. Now sometimes it's a little bit too quick, so I'm learning the song January by Pilot, and I'll put a link to that great song. And I can't hit it the first time, and you really have to listen like where exactly does the transition happen. And some of the chords are a little tiny bit difficult, but they're not that difficult. And when I say I can just play the chords as it's going through, it's as long as it's a major or minor chord, some seven, dominant sevenths, some minor sevenths, some major sevenths. Those ones I actually have trouble with unless they're like a C major seven, right? But like a G major seven, I actually have trouble with that. But anyway, it's not all chords, but you know what? What you start to find when you're playing a lot of popular music is that, well, a lot of the more difficult chords are avoided anyway, right? And the keys don't vary. Like they don't move that. Like if you have your circle of fifths, I've got mine on the wall up here, they don't move that far from the C major or A minor. I've been playing a lot of Beatles stuff off of their first two albums, and it seems like everything is in E minor, right? No, E major, E major. Everything is in E major. So what is that? E major and C sharp minor, right? And sorry, I use this constantly because my theory is not in my brain. I have to look. But you think about that when you play those early Beatles songs because they're actually moving back and forth between E major and C sharp minor on the guitar. There's a lot of that movement back and forth. And then I think they have like the F sharp minor would be something, yeah, that they use all the time. But my point is this. After a while, when you're playing chords, and I know a lot of people don't care about chords, but it's the building blocks of popular music, and yeah, I just find that just keep practicing, and suddenly, you're looking at a chord. You're fortunate if you have like a chord chart for a song, because if you don't, or if someone made one that this is something that happens all the time, they make a chord chart and it's completely wrong, and you sound like garbage, right? Um, then you have to play by ear and try to find out what's going on. And if you're not good enough to play by ear, then you have to go and find a book um, that may have that song in it. And if that band isn't popular, you may not find that book, and so it becomes a real challenge. And if you watch the movie about the Beatles, I think it's called Get Back, where they're recording in the studio. It was on Disney Plus. There is a person that comes in talking to them about um, sheet music and how horribly wrong it can be sometimes, but it's also a big business, and they should work on making sure. Like I don't know what his angle was, if he was trying to get a contract to release the sheet music for the Beatles. I have no idea. But it's true. It's a real nightmare sometimes. And it's very different. Like in the classical world, there are nightmares. Don't get me wrong. Because you will have, let's take Schumann's Carnival, which was Opus 9, which is one of my favorite pieces of music. There are like, I don't know how many variants of that running out there. And there are people that are claiming like, this is what should be in there. This is what shouldn't be in there, you know. And so that is also, it can be a nightmare. But at least you're starting with, you know, the actual written down notes. Because at that point in time, it was the only way to communicate. Now we have recorded music, so there is no need. But I wish, this is something I wish, when recorded music came out, I wish that we had passed a law saying it's fine to have recorded music, but you must provide information such as the key that it is in and the chords that are used, right? And maybe the notes that are in the melody. Sounds insane, right? But if we had done that, we could have kept the, you know, we could have recorded music and also encourage people to continue to play at home, which has really diminished over time, right? You used to have, if you wanted to listen to music at home, you had to have someone that could play an instrument and perhaps sing, right? And probably everyone knew how to play some basic instrument and sing, you know? And that's kind of gone now. Like I'm in my mid-50s and I'm building up this, what'd you call it? Well, this ability to play and a small repertoire and all this other stuff, you know? And this should have been going on my entire life. You know, even though I did study a bit of music earlier on, it was very different. Yeah, so the thing that was, I think there's some online video game stuff going on. But the thing is this, as I was going through all of these songs, and so I go through more and more songs now. Like in 2 days, I will learn 3, 4, 5, 6 songs, you know. Some I throw away, some I come back to, and I play them over and over again, right? And I've known this for a while, but I really want to state it now. Popular music is basically very simple, you know. And there are little genres of popular music where it's like, okay, you're going to be playing different types of chords for that, right? You know, we don't see in modern music a lot of dominant 7 chords, but if you go back to the 50s and 60s, the 5 chord is almost always like a dominant 7 chord, right? And you can litter them. The Beatles were great at this. They were great at littering those. Was that the right word for it? I don't know. They were throwing those 7 chords in there all the time, and changing from major to minor, and they had a lot of stuff that they did. It was really great. But basically, you know, a lot of the music is very simple, and that's what I'm getting to. You can't compare it. Like I really get sick of people being down on the Ramones and acting like there is this huge amount of popular music that is so complex. No, there isn't. There's a whole bunch of niche music. There's a whole bunch of jazz fusion. There's a whole bunch of jazz, you know, and there's a whole bunch of stuff like Captain Beefheart out there. And while I respect all of, like, my favorite recording artist is John Coltrane, okay? My second favorite recording artist is Jeff Beck. So don't get me wrong, I have an appreciation for that. But in general, in popular music, aside from the session musicians, right? So Eddie Van Halen playing for Michael Jackson, for example, there is not this great need for complexity and virtuosity, okay? So I wanted to get into what it is, you know, that separates pop music, you know, And rock and roll is popular music, right? And punk rock is popular music. I get sick of these people. It's like, punk's not pop. Well, what is it? What is it? Is it jazz? Now hardcore. I would agree. Hardcore. There's no intention of getting that on the radio at all. It is definitely like this sub-genre. But punk rock was a form of pop music. Um. Anyway, I don't feel well because you know what? I want to say something. I went to the beer store today and I had to buy Canadian beer because what I usually buy was out. I really hate Canadian beer. I'm a Canadian. I hate it. Like, I don't care what brand it is. It's all awful. Like, even some of the, like, Grolsch in Canada is now made here, and it's decent, but it's not as good as the Grolsch that I used to buy. But anyway, I'm not feeling great, is what I'm saying. I'm getting, like, allergies. I'm feeling all stuffed up from whatever the hell is in this beer, right? I'm not going to name the beer, but it's Canadian. Anyway, so yeah, I get sick of people acting like there is this very deep side of popular music. Yeah, maybe some songwriters have some diminished chords in there, or augmented chords, or add 9 chords, and maybe they have 13 chords in their song rather than 3 or 4. And some of them are great. Don't get me wrong. Many of those songs are great. But my point is that you do not need 13 different chords in order to write an excellent pop song. And the more important thing in making a pop song is to find the voice of either the band or the singer. That's the real challenge. And that's why 99% of bands that start up are going to fail if they want to be in any way popular, is that they don't know what their voice is. That's the number one thing. And if you are, really Canadian beer, like we got to get this shit together in this country. But it doesn't mean it has to be natural either. It can be a stage play. But there has to be a voice there, real or not. You have to have this voice. And that's what you find in all of the great bands. And I'm not saying that the most popular artists have the greatest voices, because there's a lot of money that's thrown behind stuff that the public will just buy. But I mean, if you look at the Beatles, the fact was that they worked very hard for several years, doing really difficult gigs in really tough places. And they came out of all of that with a bit of a voice. And they found it natural to start writing songs at some point in time. And that's what led to their success, And if you look at the Sex Pistols, which is, of all the punk bands, I'm least interested in the Sex Pistols, which is fine. But even though that is the case, the Sex Pistols, through Johnny, found their voice right away. I think it is incredible how reliable he was as the frontman for the band. The lyrics were exciting and dangerous and new. He was totally out of control, it seemed, right? But in actuality, I think he would even say, it was a big fraud, and the fraud was on them, and it was on the audience. Everyone got defrauded out of this, right? But they did a great job on that. And they didn't need 13 chords to do that. They needed character, or a character. And I say the same thing about the Ramones. The Ramones didn't need, augmented, diminished, and dominant 7 chords and all that stuff. They needed 4 or 5 chords. They didn't even need minor chords sometimes. They would just do away with them and use all major chords. But the key is providing a melody. But the melody is your character. The chord is not your character. The chord is the underlying foundation of your song. But the character can only come out in the melody, because that's what the vocalist has to throw out there, right? So when people talk about a 3-chord band, I would say just tell them the chords, while important, are not what delivers the character. It is the melody. And the melody comes from either being an excellent composer, which is not typical of popular music, or by having having found your voice. And so when you play the chords, much like Paul McCartney, you can belt something out, right? That's really what it comes down to. And I'm finding this more and more as I play. It's like, yeah, there's some songs I play that are more complicated than others. Does it make them better songs? Not necessarily. I did a recording of a Bay City Rollers song recently that fascinated me. Another day in New York City. Another rainy day in New York City. And what fascinated me about that song is that it is in a major key, and yet it is one of the most sad songs I've ever played. Because the melody is delivering the voice. Not the key and the chords, but the melody. I thought it was ingenious. And it really goes against this whole concept where you have to have complicated chords and all of this going on. Because that song, to me, that's the first song I played like that, where I was like, this is a really kind of a sad song, but it's in a major key, and it uses a lot of major chords, but it's all in the melody. And then I sat there. I was actually walking my dog, and I was like, I couldn't write this melody over these chords. There's no way I could write this melody over this chords. What talent where did this come from? Right? Because if I wanted to write a sadder song, I would start in a minor key. Right? But I do believe from playing that song, I think it's in C major. I can't remember. I always forget. I record a song and then I forget about it. So there was that, and then I was playing by Pilot January, which has many more chord changes, and it's hard to keep up with it. Which is also a great song because of those chord changes, right? But also they have a beautiful bass line. But the bass line is melodic, and it is adding the character to the song, right? But my point goes back to, you can survive on 3 or 4 chords quite easily, but it's about finding your voice. And then your voice will dictate, do we need more chords? Do we need more, inverted chords? Do we need more complicated chords for what the voice is, right? Now, anyone can turn around and say, well, Blaine, if you know this, why are your songs horrible? Right? Now, I think I've actually talked to a few people, and I think I have a few good songs now. I don't think I've written the song that I'm happy with, but I have a few that are actually good. I'm quite happy with them as standalone little pieces, but I still have some work. Why? Why haven't I? Why haven't I succeeded even to my level expectations? Because I haven't found my voice. There are little, I go back through my music and I'm like, does this work? This doesn't work. This does work. This doesn't work. And there have been some dismal failures, right? But the ones that I find this kind of that's working, it's because my voice is in there a little bit. What is my true voice? Well, I'm a cynic. Okay. So, anytime there's something cynical going on in my songwriting, it might work out better, right? I don't think I can write sad songs. I write cynical songs that have a little bit of irony and a little bit of a joke about how, life sucks or whatever, That's my voice, and I have to tap into that. But the fact is, I haven't found my voice. And part of the reason I haven't found my voice, and this is another thing I want to get into, why is popular music so dominated by the young? It's because they can find a voice much more easily. Maybe they're angry with their parents. Maybe they're frustrated with the world around them. They don't have a lot to lose. Maybe they have nothing to lose. Maybe they have everything to lose and they don't realize it. Who knows? Right? But young people will grab the world by the throat. Whereas in our society, people that are living a middle class life are not capable of doing that. I had a lot of trouble. I'm not working right now, but when I was working, every time I was writing any song, I was concerned about how it reflects on me and all this other stuff. None of that matters because a song is a piece of artwork. It's much like a painting. It's not a reflection on you as a human being, and it shouldn't be. It's simply a piece of art that you throw out there, and then people can either relate to it or they don't, But finding middle-aged people who are kind of like set in their ways to come up with this stuff seems a little bit ridiculous, And some people would say, well, Blaine, you're just trying to relive that youth you never had. Of course I am. Because it was taken away from me. I didn't have money for an amplifier. I had to work all my life. And then I had kids. And you can hear them now. They're enjoying their life right now. But anyway, my kind of message about rock and roll and keeping it alive is that you do not have to make complicated music. You have to find your voice. And hopefully it's a good voice. Sometimes I worry about the voice that I'm going to find when this is all done, that it's just a horrible voice. And then I would like, oh, okay. And I don't mean vocally a voice, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe mine sucks, right? That's fine. I'll just sit in a log cabin playing guitar. Dogs don't care. My dog has never judged anything that I play on guitar. She's great. So, maybe that's my future. But yeah, enough with the pretentious stuff. There are those fantastic artistes out there. Kate Bush, Captain Beefheart. And then outside of pop music, there's John Coltrane, Jeff Beck, But I'm talking mostly about pop music. Oingo Boingo. There's a band for you, Echo and the Bunnymen, but it doesn't have to be complicated. I guess, yeah, that's my main message. Like for any band, and like no one's going to see this, I'm sure, but for any band that's like, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? The number one thing you have to do is find your voice. Play some chords, get your vocalist doing stuff over top of it. Huddle around. Is this us? Is this what we want? Is this who we are? Because you have to find out who you are. The punchline to all of this is that in many ways it doesn't matter because there's no money out there. But is it really all about money? I don't think so. Right? You want success of some type. What does success mean to you? If it means money, then maybe you shouldn't be involved in art in the first place, But I know people have to survive. But anyway, that's just like my little thought. I'm going to put some links to videos on here where I think these are just bands that they maybe were not the best, they didn't write the most complicated songs. They were not virtuosos, and they still made fantastic music. So I will add links to that on here to give an example of what I'm talking about. Anyway, thanks for watching if you made it through.